Hello, hello, and welcome to Saturday Soundbites. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today because on Saturday Soundbites, we talk about all the things that I love visibility strategy wise, marketing, advertising, branding, public relations, networking, all the things you need to grow your visibility, have an amazingly strong and powerful business, and show up boldly for your products and your services and all the things that you want to connect with people on, including passion projects. So, today, I have a phenomenal guest. We're going to talk about the importance of your email list, how to grow it, how to really make sure it's exploding and it's connecting with the right folks. But before we get started, I want to make sure that we take care of some housekeeping. So if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of Saturday Soundbites. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop us some comments, and my guest and I will certainly circle back and connect. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest today. I have the amazing Michele joining us. Welcome to Saturday Soundbites.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a thrill, Michele. I love the idea of helping people grow their lists. We've heard a lot about it, and I assume it has evolved over the years as new technologies and automations have joined us. But before we get to that, Michele, because I know that's what we're going to talk about, tell us a little bit about your background and your area of expertise.
Sure. So, career paths can be really crazy and winding. And I started off working in media relations and college sports. And that's really got where I got my feet wet for a lot of different communication strategies and tactics. And I had the unique opportunity at a very young age to then move on to the academic side of a university and build a communications department from the ground up. So that was a wonderful opportunity. And I really grew as both a communicator and a leader and manager with that. So I've kind of been doing that for most of my career. I've noticed a common thread of just building things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really my sweet spot. And fast forward to now, I quit my job about 4 years ago, went back to school for a master's in executive leadership, and then graduated right before the pandemic, like right on the cusp of that. And things that I was seeing happening in my network just really propelled me to start my own business. I was already marketing consulting in grad school, and then I started doing career coaching and some other professional development things. And through all of that, I really learned the importance of email list building. Because, marketing is very different in the higher ed sector, especially when you're working with a very established brand. One of the universities I worked at was established in 1853. So
Yeah.
it's very different. You don't have to beg people to, come, apply and enroll in your school. And so running a business, I got schooled real quick on the importance of really building your audience, especially when you don't have that built-in audience anymore that I was always used to having.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And someone from the K-12 side of things, I know that the struggles as well. So I can certainly appreciate that. So tell us about some of the challenges. You talked about pre-COVID and now post-COVID. I know that a lot of online entrepreneurs have had an opportunity to really invest in their own learning. So tell us some of the challenges that have popped up with growing email lists, because I think that there's a lot of folks who know it's a good idea, but they're not quite sure what to do with it and how it actually can help them grow.
Yeah, so there's definitely a few challenges you have to overcome. Where I see a lot of people get stuck is really not knowing what I call their PSA. So the problem that they solve and the exact solution that they came up with, and then the audience and who they solve it for. I find that those three pieces, one or two or all three, are usually missing from entrepreneurs who are really kind of struggling to be visible and grow their audience and really convert and make sales. So that's kind of the first piece. The second struggle with list building is, figuring out all the technology. Like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of automations out there, which are awesome. And I see a lot of people get stuck. Well, which email marketing service do I use? And because there's so many out there. And so that can be overwhelming and you can get stuck in analysis paralysis, right? So that's another thing to overcome. And then a third thing is really, how are you going to tell people about your email list, and why are they going to give you their email address? Most people don't like to give that up, right?
Yep.
How are you going to get them on? And then what do you do with them?
Mhm.
Because, you really need to have a strategy together. Email lists, what research shows is that you can get on average $42 back for every dollar you spend on your email list. When you compare
Wow.
that with social media ads, Facebook ads, I think Facebook ads can be like 25 to 1. But I mean, it is really, really challenging to get your Facebook funnel ads profitable. That is
Right.
something I never claimed to be a Facebook ad expert. I'm still learning on, and I've found a couple different, lower cost ad strategies to grow my email list using Facebook ads. But that's a challenge too, because ad prices have gone up and they
Yeah.
continue to go up. They were definitely exacerbated by, we had the election in 2020 that drove ad costs up. And then just even the pandemic and more people just kind of pivoting their ad strategies because their business storefronts were closed. And
Mhm.
so it got really, really costly. And then you had an influx of a lot of people just, going the digital entrepreneur route. And so now you have all those other costs driving up ad costs. So those are kind of the main areas that I see people struggle with building an email list.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with that, and the whole idea of you being able to get I mean, we talk about ROI, right? We talk about
Yeah.
your return on your investment, and the whole idea that your email list can get you so much more. Talk to us a little bit about why you think that is, aside from, the ads, and then what it looks like for people who aren't really growing their email list, but maybe are purchasing email lists, because you touched
Okay.
on it just a little bit, and I feel
Sure.
like that might be a distinction for some of our listeners.
Yeah. So with email lists and really be able to get the return on investment, you do have to have a strategy.
Mhm.
Why it's more effective sometimes than spending time with social media and putting all your eggs in the social media basket is things are always changing on the social platforms for
Mhm.
starters. There's been some new recent developments out from Meta and Instagram, Facebook about changes to the algorithm and the feeds that we're seeing. So we're already starting to see less of people that we are friends with or follow and more suggested content. And
Mhm.
then the suggested content is a lot of video. It's not static posts or images, right? So that's changing that whole scope of, trying to monetize your social media content.
Mhm.
With email lists, the other big benefit is you own the data. If your account gets shut down, you get locked out, you get hacked on social, you don't own that contact information. And I've
Yeah.
I've heard way too many stories of people losing access, people getting hacked, and then now they don't have their money making stream because they put all the eggs in the social media basket. So you
Gotcha.
have to have your eggs kind of spread around a little bit. And with email, you can contact them. You can email them out whenever you want. You can actually see data of who's clicked on things and helpful information about that. That is also changing with some of the privacy protections that have rolled out from Apple Mail, and Google's doing some things as well. So that piece of email marketing is definitely changing. We're having to kind of adapt to different things like that.
Mhm.
And so those are some of the reasons why email is more effective. Now, when it comes to buying lists, this
Yes.
is like a big no-no.
Gotcha.
So especially depending on where you live and where you do business. So Europe has GDPR, and there's a lot of regulations about how you are using email marketing, and list buying is kind of a big no-no because people haven't opted in to your list. So that's a huge thing that can cause problems. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I sponsored a conference, a women's leadership conference one year. And I just wanted to test it out, knowing that a lot of my target audience was going to be at the conference. Unfortunately, the conference was virtual, so I didn't have a physical presence there. I did my best to be visible in the app that we were using to communicate and talking with people. But I grew my list that way because they agreed to the terms when they registered that their email list or their email information and contact information would be shared with sponsors. So I did it as a test. And I will tell you, of the $500 I spent for that sponsorship, not one single person from the email list has converted into a sale. And I've
Wow.
nurtured, I've done different strategies. And so that was a lesson to me that here's what happens when people are on your list and they don't know you. They
Mhm.
never signed up for you, per se. They agreed to it in the fine print. I have had some good conversations with people, and maybe later on it will turn into a sale. But it was I'm glad I experimented with that too, because
Mhm.
it's something I can just provide more information to my clients about.
Mhm.
So I definitely advocate for you building your list with people who actually want to be there.
Mhm.
I also advocate for scrubbing your list and getting rid of people who are not engaging. Helps with your deliverability rates, but then you've got a warmer audience of people who like hearing from you and know that you can help them, and they enjoy reading your emails, and maybe they buy some of your products and services. And so it's definitely quality over quantity when it
Yeah.
comes to email list building. A lot of people can get caught up with vanity metrics like the number of subscribers, kind of the same thing on social media, like how many likes did you get or how many followers did you get? But none of that really matters if they're not buying at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
No, that makes complete sense. I like that. And so, what are some of the tips that you share with people who are just starting out, who maybe just have a list of a couple of dozen people, who maybe don't have a Facebook group, or
Yeah.
who are maybe using one of those other social media channels? What are some of the steps that you recommend for new folks into the space to start growing your list?
Sure. So, one of the ways I've really grown my list a lot has been building what's called a quiz funnel.
Hmm.
So, BuzzFeed really popularized the concept of a quiz from an entertainment perspective,
Hmm.
right? Or like, which Disney princess are you? Those fun little quizzes. If you were a salad, what kind of salad you would be? I mean, millions and millions and millions of people have taken these quizzes just for fun. Well, you can develop quizzes to help identify a way for your audience to solve a particular pain point. Give them a quick little win, but on the flip side, you're also learning about them. Because a big shift I'm seeing in marketing, because there is so much noise digitally and social media, it's getting harder to target your customers on social media because of some new privacy protections that have rolled out, and people can opt out of things and opt out of being tracked. Is now with quizzes, you can learn a lot about your customers. So I
Hmm.
have a bunch of different quiz funnels. I run Facebook ads to the quiz, so I can add people to my email list as low as 63 cents an email to my average is probably between $1 and $2 to add to an email. Now,
Wow.
when I've done other things like a traditional lead magnet, as they call it, with like a PDF of some sort of tips or a webinar or some other things, those are really expensive to get people to convert. So I don't necessarily recommend you going like the webinar route
Hmm.
when you have a small audience, because those ads are really expensive to run. And really, you shouldn't be doing that until you hit certain revenue benchmarks and audience sizes, because you've got to have the cash flow to run the ads. And then you've got to have a back end offer built that converts so that you can actually be profitable when you run a webinar. So
Hmm.
it's good to experiment and see what your audience, gravitates to. You
Hmm.
could build your list through setting up a free Facebook group. but you've got to have a strategy in place of how are you going to engage with them and create conversation. So it just doesn't, people don't
Sure.
collect dust there.
Yeah.
So I have a free Facebook group for my career coaching business. And what's great is I'm adding people daily are coming into the group, and they, they have to like answer questions to join the group. And one of them is to just optionally provide an email address. Most of them do. Then they get added to my list. And then I have a welcome sequence set up where they can schedule a free career strategy session with me, just 30 minutes, where I can learn a little bit more about them and their problem that they're facing in their career. And then I can point them to resources that I have available, both free and paid. So anything that you can do to learn more about your customers while you're building your email list is going to be a strategy that really pays off.
I think that's a great strategy, and I've seen more and more people really take opportunity to get involved in some of those groups. And since the pandemic, I think I've probably tripled the number of groups I've been involved with because I was just looking for professional development. I was looking for human connection, and now that we're more back to normal, it still brings value. So I think that as long as you're still getting value, that's where you're going to go for your content.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you just have to really pay attention to things that are happening on social media. And if Facebook group is working for you, you need to be monitoring what changes are coming down the pike for groups on Facebooks. Are
hmm
they going to try to start monetizing them? Are they going to charge you to have a group? I don't know. These are all things that just float around. But
Sure.
then what's your visibility going to be like when these algorithms shift?
hmm
Because last major shift in the algorithms really served groups well, and
Mm.
that's why they were growing so much, is because Facebook was really trying to pump up that as a resource. And so I was getting views in my group, like 50 to 70% of my group members were seeing my content,
Oh,
compared to
wow.
a business page that I might get 1 or 2%. So you've got to always pay attention to those things too. And email is a little bit more stable as a communication tool for the most part. And you can still have conversations and get people to reply to you and talk with them there. But you just have to kind of find what works, for your audience. I see a lot of times, um, business entrepreneur selling services to other business entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
They're a very different animal than like you just selling to a regular consumer who's working a 9 to 5 job every day and maybe needs something, that you help them solve a problem. Their availability to participate in webinars or challenges or all these other things that you see working for other business entrepreneurs can be really difficult to figure out the strategy for your audience.
Mhm.
So that's why I always encourage people to have conversations with their audience, whether it's through consultations, Facebook groups, your email, and having email conversations with them. It makes a really big difference in how you're able to connect and then eventually convert.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, tell me a little bit about the more technical parts of an email list.
Sure.
So, say you've got 250 emails and you feel pretty solid, people have given them to you, they seem to be your target audience, they check all the boxes. Then what? Tell us. I know there's lots of different platforms and things you
Yeah.
can use, but what are some of the basics that you need to look for as you're thinking about now you've got an email list, now you need to do something with it?
Sure. So I that's a great question. I think the first thing is you need certain tools in place with that service provider that you're selecting. Um, I use ConvertKit. I've been very happy with them. It's fairly easy to set up and it's very powerful when it comes to automations. So you want to be able to segment out your email list because you've got to, figure out a system that works for you, whether you want to segment it out to cold audience, warm audience, your past purchasers, or if you have different products and services in your business, you'll want to segment out people who would, really only be relevant for a particular product and service.
Gotcha.
Then you can create tags and get really specific there. I probably have over 100 tags for different offerings I've had or problems that I've identified. And, people have self-selected because they did a quiz funnel. Because my quiz funnel software and my email software communicate.
Oh,
So based on
yeah.
their answers, they get tagged, they get segmented on my list. And then I have automated email sequences. So a series of emails that have been pre-written, and they go out based on, people getting added to a segment or a tag. And so I have a lot of, lead nurturing happening 24/7. Doesn't matter when somebody takes the quiz, they automatically get their results. Then they get, dropped into a nurture sequence based on their answers. So all of that is happening all the time. So you need to look for ways that you're able to, pre-schedule your emails. You want to segment them out. You want to be able to create tags. And you want your quiz software to communicate with maybe some other tools that you use in your business.
Mhm.
That's really, really important. And it's better if they natively communicate and you don't have to go through a third party like Zapier and then have to buy Zaps. That's just like another business expense.
Yeah.
So that's, some of the tips that I can share about, trying to find the right technology for your business when it comes to email marketing.
No, those are great tips. And I've heard of the platform you referenced, and I know there's a few others, but I love the idea of eliminating having to make connections or importing or exporting data. So if they can communicate naturally, then your email sequences in your flow, which your communication is going to flow more naturally too.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great advice. Before we wrap up, Michele, give me one or two things that people are doing right now that you see that are not moving their email list business forward. So I don't want to say they're mistakes, because
Okay.
we learn from things that don't work. But what are some things that you're seeing that people are doing that really aren't working, and they need to take a look at how they can change that?
Sure. I think the first thing is just they're not always beginning with the end in mind.
Mm.
So I always think about the ultimate offer and then all the little steps that they need to take, like my prospective customers, to get to that ultimate offer where they're going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to begin with the end in mind and kind of reverse engineer a lot of the things that I build in my business. So that can definitely help you figure out how you're going to nurture those leads when you know what the end game is.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of times people will spend all this time and money trying to add people to their list. Then they don't have a game plan as far as like, how are they going to keep this list engaged? How are they going to improve their deliverability rates so that their emails aren't going to the dreaded spam land and now Google's like promotions tab? It's like, there's like another little roadblock you have to try to overcome to get actually in people's main inbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see a lack of strategy there. And the other thing I see people making the mistake of is they don't necessarily have their offer locked in for why somebody should join their email list in the first place.
Gotcha.
So spoiler alert, people don't really want your newsletter. Like that is not attractive to them.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a lot of great features of your newsletter, but if they don't understand the benefit of having the newsletter, like that offer is going to fall flat all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, if you offer like a discount code, if you join the email list, then you need to be really strategic about what you're doing after they get that discount code, because those are like what I call like the freebie seekers, right? They just want the one thing. They have no intention of hanging around. They just want that discount code or whatever that little freebie thing is. So you've got to have a plan of like how you're going to nurture those people. And then if they're inactive, then you got to get them off your list. You got to scrub them off just so you can improve your deliverability rates.
Oh, those are great, great examples. I love it. Michele, how can people work with you? You've got so much information. I've been taking copious notes. I've got so many things I want to ask, but I know we're running out of time. So how can people connect with you and reach out with questions they may have?
Sure. So they're welcome to pop onto my website. They can schedule a free consultation. They're 30 minutes. I'm not selling you anything. If you want to ask me any questions about marketing, email marketing, quiz funnels, I'm more than happy to talk with you and share some of the tools that I use. I also have a woman entrepreneur mastermind that I host twice a month. It's free to join. What's great about that is everybody's kind of in a different phase in their business, and we can kind of hop on Zoom together, share what we're working on in our business and where we're feeling stuck. And you got a room full of people who totally get what
Wow.
you're going through and can share maybe ways that they've been able to overcome that. A lot of times I'm answering questions in that group about offer crafting and email list building. And that information is also on my website.
That's awesome. Thank you, Michele, so much for joining us on Saturday Soundbites. I have enjoyed every minute of it. And I'm serious. I literally took half a page of notes.
It was fun. I'm happy to chat again anytime you want.
Awesome. Thanks, Michele. Have a great one.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, folks, that's Michele Dye. Make sure you check out her website. It sounds like she's got some phenomenal resources for you because she certainly knows what she's talking about when it comes to exploding your email list and helping you grow your business and grow your visibility strategy. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Saturday Soundbites, but I'm going to remind you to hit subscribe if you're listening to the podcast on one of your favorite podcast platforms because everyone goes different places to get it. Or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments and Michele and I will certainly go back and tag you and connect and answer any questions you might have. So with that, I'm going to sign off by sending you lots of positive energy and light.